The first time anyone noticed Ellie Morgan was in the back row of room 12B at Jefferson High. She never raised her hand, never looked up. She always had her headphones on, her messy auburn hair hiding most of her face. Some teachers thought she was just shy. Others marked her as emotionally unavailable in their reports. But the truth was simpler. Ellie just didn't like noise. Not the noise of people or halls or life. Music was the only sound that didn't hurt. Ellie had moved to North Carolina just 2 months earlier, after her mother's job transfer. She'd been through 5 schools in 3 years. Her father was never in the picture, and her mother was too exhausted to notice how Ellie never spoke unless spoken to. And even then, it was usually a whisper. No one at Jefferson knew she could play the piano. Not until the day the music teacher, Mrs. Whitmore, ran a surprise assessment. "Everyone will pick one instrument," she said. "Let's see what you've got." Ellie sat frozen. She wanted to disappear. But when she stood near the piano, her fingers moved like they had a story to tell. The room went quiet as she played a soft, haunting melody none of them recognized. It wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. By the time she was done, Mrs. Whitmore's eyes were glassy. One boy clapped awkwardly. Then others joined in. Ellie looked shocked, as if waking from a trance. That day, word spread fast. The quiet girl could play. No one knew where she learned or why she never talked. But something about the way she touched the keys made people pause. It was like her silence had a voice, and it was beautiful. That night, Ellie sat alone in her room, looking at her keyboard. For the first time in months, she smiled. Something had shifted. By the end of the week, students were stopping Ellie in the hallway. Not to mock her like at her last school, but to say things like, "Hey, you were amazing on the piano," or "That song, it gave me chills." Ellie never knew how to respond. She'd nod, sometimes offer a faint smile, but her eyes always darted toward the floor. Mrs. Whitmore, on the other hand, wasn't about to let Ellie disappear again. The next Monday, she cornered her after class. "Ellie, where did you learn to play like that?" Ellie shrugged. "Just taught myself." "You're lying," Mrs. Whitmore said, smiling gently. "That's not self-taught. That's soul-taught." Ellie blinked, confused. "There's a school talent show next month," the teacher added. "You should sign up." Ellie's throat tightened. I can't." Mrs. Whitmore lowered her voice. "You don't have to talk. Just play. Let the music speak." Ellie wanted to say no. She hated stages, hated being seen. But something about the way Mrs. Whitmore looked at her, like she mattered, made her hesitate. That night, she practiced. Not to impress anyone, not for a prize, but to feel something again. Her fingers danced over keys, as if trying to remember a forgotten language. The notes poured out gentle, aching, raw. She didn't know what the song was. It just came to her. Each night, she played again, adding a little more. A few notes to echo the day her dad left. A soft progression for the night. She cried alone in the bathroom stall. A quiet bridge for the loneliness that followed her like a shadow. It wasn't just music anymore. It was her. One night, her mom walked in without knocking, hearing the sound from down the hall. She stood in silence, watching her daughter lost in the melody. She hadn't seen Ellie look alive like this in years. When the final note faded, Ellie looked up and saw tears in her mother's eyes. That's when Ellie knew she would play at the talent show. Not for them. For herself. The weeks leading up to the talent show felt like slow waves building towards something Ellie couldn't name. Each morning, she walked through Jefferson's halls a little differently. Still quiet, still small, but no longer invisible. People didn't whisper behind her back anymore. They nodded, smiled. Some even asked if she was performing. Ellie always answered with the same soft shrug. But inside, she was nervous. Not because she feared making a mistake. She trusted the music. It was the people she feared. Their eyes. Their expectations. Mrs. Whitmore arranged for Ellie to use the auditorium after school for practice. She'd sit in the dark room, the massive red curtain behind her, the empty rows in front. At first, it felt terrifying, then comforting, like the quiet finally matched her own. Every session, the melody grew, deeper, fuller, like it was alive and learning to breathe with her. The piece didn't have a name. Ellie didn't know how to title something that held so many pieces of her life, so she simply called it the song. One afternoon, while she played, she didn't notice someone sitting near the back until the last note echoed. It was a boy named Caleb, tall, lanky, always sketching in a notebook. He looked startled when she saw him. "Sorry," he said, standing. "Didn't mean to freak you out. I heard you playing from the hallway." Ellie stayed silent. Caleb hesitated, then added, "That song, it felt like something I felt before. I just didn't know how to say it." For some reason, Ellie didn't shrink away. She didn't speak, either. She just gave the smallest nod. And Caleb understood. After that, he started coming often. Never spoke much. Just sat with his sketchbook while she played. Sometimes he'd leave a doodle behind on the seat. Images of wings, oceans, storms, all things that somehow matched her music. It was the first friendship Ellie ever had that didn't need words. The night before the show, Ellie sat at her keyboard in her room, hands trembling slightly. Her mother poked her head in. "Nervous?" Ellie looked up and whispered, "A little." Her mother smiled. "Good. It means you care." Ellie looked down at her hands. "I just wanted to feel it the way I do." Her mom stepped in and gently said, "They will, because it's real." And real always finds a way to be heard. The night of the talent show arrived like a sudden storm, loud, bright, and impossible to ignore. Jefferson High's auditorium buzzed with chatter, laughter, and the occasional squeal from the backstage crew. Kids in sparkly costumes ran back and forth. Parents filled the rows, armed with phones and applause. Somewhere in the middle of it all, Ellie sat in the corner backstage, knees tucked to her chest, headphones over her ears. The music helped her breathe out misses. Whitmore crouched beside her. "You okay?" Ellie gave a slow nod. "You don't have to look at anyone," the teacher said gently. "Just play. Let them come to you." As the performances went on, dancers, singers, even a comedy act, the noise backstage grew. But when they called her name, everything fell into a hush. Next up, the announcer said, "Ellie Morgan, original piano composition." Ellie stepped out under the lights, blinking at the sudden brightness. The stage felt massive. The grand piano gleamed under the spotlight, like it was waiting for her to speak. She sat, took one breath, and placed her fingers on the keys. The first note rang out like a whisper breaking a silence. Then came the second, and the third. The room, once buzzing, now held its breath. Ellie didn't just play notes. She told a story of sadness, hope, grief, and quiet courage. The melody rose and fell like a memory, a soft ache followed by warmth. People didn't move. Some closed their eyes. Others stared at her hands in awe, as if trying to understand how something so quiet could sound so loud inside. Near the back, Caleb sat sketching furiously, tears in his eyes he didn't bother hiding. In the front row, Ellie's mother clutched a tissue and smiled through her tears. As the final note faded, there was a full 3 seconds of silence. Then the auditorium erupted. Not just claps, standing ovation, whistles, people shouting her name. Ellie sat frozen, unsure what to do. She stood, bowed quickly, then turned to leave. Backstage, someone grabbed her hand. "Caleb." He said only one word. "Thank you." Ellie blinked and smiled, not because she was proud, but because, for once, she had been heard. The video of Ellie's performance was online by morning. Someone's parent had recorded the entire piece, posted it to Facebook with the caption, "You have to hear this girl play. She'll break your heart and heal it in the same breath." Within hours, it was shared across town. By noon, local news stations had picked it up. Shy teen leaves audience speechless at Jefferson High talent show. Ellie didn't even know until Caleb texted her, "You're going viral." She opened the video, heart pounding, 1 million views, comments from strangers, musicians, teachers, parents, people saying things like, "I felt every note," and "My daughter has anxiety." Watching Ellie gave her hope. One person wrote, "I haven't touched a piano in 10 years. Today, I sat down and played again. Thank you." Ellie stared at the screen, hands shaking. She didn't understand how something so personal could spread so far. It scared her, but it also lifted her. At school, students treated her like a celebrity. They high-fived her, asked for piano tips, begged her to perform again. Ellie, still quiet, nodded and smiled. But something inside her had changed. Not louder, just stronger than misses. Whitmore called her in after class. Ellie, Berklee College of Music, saw the video. They want to meet you. Ellie's eyes widened. I'm only 16. They don't care. They want to hear more. Her mom cried when she heard. Not just happy tears. Relieved ones. Like she'd been waiting for a door to open for her daughter. And finally, it had. That weekend, Ellie and Caleb met at the park. He brought his sketchbook. She brought her keyboard. They didn't speak much, but they didn't need to. Caleb flipped the sketchbook to a new page. On it was a drawing of Ellie at the piano, a whirlwind of music swirling around her, forming wings. He pointed at the wings. You gave me these. Ellie looked at him, eyes glassy, then whispered, You were the first person who stayed to listen. Caleb smiled, shy and honest. I'd stay forever if you let me. For the first time in her life, Ellie didn't feel alone. She felt seen. She felt real. And her music was just getting started. Months passed, but the memory of that night on stage never left Ellie. It became the heartbeat of everything that followed. Each melody she wrote, every key she touched, her life, once filled with silence and shadows, now moved with quiet purpose. She didn't chase fame. She didn't need to. People came to her, not for noise or glitter, but for truth, a rawness in her music that couldn't be taught, only lived. She began uploading short videos from her bedroom. No words, just her hands, a piano, and emotion. Millions watched, millions listened, and they stayed. When the official invitation came from Berklee, Ellie almost couldn't believe it. A full scholarship, a future built from the same silence that once kept her hidden. She held the letter in her hands, fingers trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of everything she thought she'd never be. Caleb was the first person she told. He didn't say much, just pulled her into a hug and whispered, You're going to move more than just rooms now. You'll move the world. She kept performing at charity concerts, small halls, schools, not for applause, but for connection. One night after a show, a little girl with big glasses approached her with a crumpled drawing. You look like me, the girl said, and you play how I feel. Ellie knelt beside her, tears in her eyes. Then you should play too. In every place she visited, she left behind more than sound. She left courage. For the quiet ones, the overlooked, the kids who didn't speak but felt everything. Years later, when Ellie stood on the stage at Carnegie Hall, the lights low, the audience silent, she placed her fingers on the keys and closed her eyes. The song she played wasn't written down. It came from somewhere deeper, grief, hope, love, and healing all stitched into one dot, and in that stillness, the world listened, not to noise, but to truth, to a girl who once sat in the back of room 12B unheard, now playing a melody the world would never forget.